Must not allow our creative protests to degenerate into physical violence.
Powerful words from the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. during a time where segregation was prominent and racism was rampant. Our next guest is a retired teacher who met the late civil rights activist, and he's sharing his experience with us. I'd like to welcome my father, Arthur Sheppard, to the show. Hey, Dad.
Hey, how you doing, Desiree?
Good, good. Happy to have you on this morning. And what did you see growing up as a young black man during a time where the world okayed segregation and racism?
Wow. Well, I remember one time me and my mom went to a store, a famous supermarket, and she wanted to buy some hamburger, so she went back down to the butcher area, and she was talking to the butcher about what she wanted, when suddenly a white woman walked up. And the butcher turned away from my mom, walked over to the other lady, and started helping her. And then several more, white people came up, and he helped them. And then when he was finished, he just came back to her as if nothing had happened. And I remember thinking then, like, wow, how wrong that was,
Yeah, definitely. And you actually kind of had another incident at the grocery store when you were looking for a job. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yes. It was the same store, too. Well, it was like I was like 14 or 15 years old, and back then you could work at a supermarket, as a bag boy. And so every now and then they would put a sign, "Bag boys wanted," in the store. Now, a bag boy is a person who bags up people's groceries and then brings it out to their car. And so I saw the sign and went in, and when I got there, the manager told me, "Oh, I'm sorry, we already hired somebody." No problem. And then about maybe a couple of weeks later, I saw the sign again. I went back in, and the guy told me the same thing. And then maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, I went back for a third time, and finally the manager told me, he said, "We can't hire you. We don't hire colored people here." And I remember I felt so bad, Desiree. It was like, wow, I'm no good. I'm not really a good person because, the color of my skin.
Yeah, I can only think about how horrible it was to hear something like that when you're looking for a job and for that type of response almost to kind of be validated during that time period. Now, tell us how that moment led to you meeting MLK Jr.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right. Well, it was like the same supermarket. It was about 3 days later. And these people from SCLC, I think was Southern Christian Leadership Council, they came by and they wanted to change the situation in Kirkwood, like a little suburb of it, not even a suburb, but a little part of Atlanta, Georgia, where we were living. And the guy had these leaflets, and he gave me one, and it said, we want to end segregation and get black people hired in these stores. So I thought, wow, that's a good idea. So I ran home and asked my mom, could I go? And she said, "Oh, no, you might get hurt, or those people go crazy sometimes." And I said, well, ask your dad when he comes home. And when my dad came home, he eventually said, yeah, I could do it. So, but they said there was going to be, Martin Luther King was going to be at the movie theater that night, and he's going to talk about it. So I went to the theater, and I was a little kid then, and so I could barely see over people. In fact, I couldn't see over him, but I heard him talk, and I remember the great things he said. But anyway, I couldn't see him, and then when it was over, I decided to leave and go home. When I turned the corner going down to my street, there was a black sedan parked there, and the guy who had the leaflets, he said, "Hey, did you see Dr. Martin Luther King?" And I said, "No, I wanted to talk to him, but there were too many people." And he leaned over the car and he said, "Come here real quick." And I came over and he opened the back door, and there was Martin Luther King sitting in the car. And I jumped in the seat, and I said, "Couldn't you help me get a job?" And he told me, "No, but you can help yourself get a job." Mm-hmm. And I said, "How can I do that?" He said, "Well, you can boycott the store," and he explained to me what it meant. Yeah. You can demonstrate and walk in front of the store, picket the store, and until they agree to our demands. And I said, "Will you do that?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, I said, "Will I get a job?" You can get any job you want or do anything you want in your life if you're willing to work hard for it. And I never forgot those words. It's like, as long as you're willing to work real hard, you can achieve any goal.
Wow. And so you ended up boycotting. How was the outcome of that, going back to that grocery store?
Oh, wow. I think we did it for we picketed and boycotted for maybe 10, maybe 13 days. And finally, the store gave in and they started hiring black people. In fact, I was one of the people they hired. I was a bad boy. So it taught me like a really, a great lesson, a lesson that I take with me today, that if you're willing to work real hard, you can achieve any goal.
Wow. And I mean, most people don't get the opportunity like you had to meet Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and to have that one-on-one conversation with him. And you talk about this story in your book, Talking Penny. What other stories do you write about in your book?
Oh, all right. Well, me and Dr. Martin Luther King is, one of the, the short stories I wrote. I also do some poetry about how sometimes, we as black people, we have a tendency to put each other down. We call us names which aren't, really helpful. And I talk about that in a poem called B's and N's. You can figure out what that means. And I also talk about a story about a little girl one time when I was working in Los Angeles, and I had lost my faith in doing, following my career goals, and how she showed me, like a little kid, showed me how to, have faith again.
Wow. And with the knowledge that you have and life experiences that you lived, what advice would you give to people of color today?
Well, the advice I would give is the advice I heard myself, and that is, be willing to work very, very, very hard for what you want in the face of, a racism. Yeah. Because it's easy to say, oh, I can't do it because, this and that, because I'm black and all this. But if you're willing to work really hard and fight for what's right, instead of turning away and just saying, oh, well, that's the way, things are, then you will be successful. And I've done that many times in my life where I was like I was ready to give up, but I remember the words of Martin Luther King, and they echo in my head sometimes, like, if you're willing to work hard, you can achieve your goals.
All righty, we're going to leave with that message. Dad, thanks so much for joining us. To hear more of my dad's stories growing up, you can get a copy of his book, Talking Penny, on Amazon.com.